This podcast is sponsored by Infinera. Infinera is transforming network architectures and end-user connectivity services as demand for capacity drives coherent technology closer to the edge at 100 gig, across the metro at 400 gig, and deeper into the core at 800 gig. Hello and welcome to the Light Reading Podcast. I'm Phil Harvey. I'm an editor at Light Reading.
I'm Kelsey Zeiser. I'm also an editor at Light Reading.
I'm Suzanne Widup, and I'm one of the DBIR authors with Verizon.
Suzanne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time and helping to allay our cybersecurity fears, because they.
I'm not sure I can allay them. I might amplify them.
Yeah, just explain why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. That's all I ask anybody to do anymore. But it's great to have you on because one of the first things that we say this a lot is that the hackers, the cybersecurity sort of threats out there are getting better all the time, evolving, changing, and the whole practice of both attacking and defending is moving on as fast as anything. And so it's helpful to us to have folks who are can explain what's new, what's happened lately, how the trends are lining up. So I guess I'll start there. What in your research, in your occupation, what trends have you noticed around phishing and ransomware attacks that have maybe changed or evolved over the past year?
Well, I think that certainly both have grown. We've seen tremendous growth in our data set over time on both social attacks and on ransomware. And in particular on ransomware that used to just be an integrity attack where, you would lose access to your data and then they change their tactics. And now you not only lose access to your data, but they can give it to other people, which is so kind of them.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But yeah.
That brings up does anybody really want my data? But they probably do.
Apparently someone does.
Yeah.
They've all managed to stand up infrastructure for sharing your data.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's actually one of the evolutions that we've seen over the years as well, is sort of the commoditization of the ransomware and giving out ransomware as a service, and how mature these marketplaces have become, so that it used to be that you had script kiddies that they would put out tools so that the barrier to entry for even hacking into a system was very low, and now it's the barrier to entry to pretty much anything is very low. And the marketplace is out there, and they have customer service and call centers and all the things that you expect from a modern company, and you just don't expect to see that kind of marketing, if you will, in the criminal space.
Yeah, it's a level of like I think, but framing it like, they're just basically well-run enterprises in some cases, and that's what's so scary, is that they're they've professionalized every aspect about being a cyber criminal, which makes me wonder: do they have to do those damn employee workshops where they're all about team building and stuff like that? Like, I wonder if they do trust falls and that kind of garbage. Anyway,
it just made me wonder too if they have to do the employee surveys and stuff, rate our work, or when they use the services, they get the rating surveys that we get every time we finish with pretty much anything these days.
Yeah, and then they have but they still go by, all the executives still go by their criminal code names, so they're like please rate Darth Maul on his attentiveness or whatever. Anyway, I'm
attention to detail as they're strangling you,
Yeah, I'm dragging this in a stupid direction, as I'm prone to do. Kelsey, you probably have an actual working professional question we should ask.
No, I mean that sounds like an interesting work environment, and I do hope they have to answer a lot of surveys, because I feel like that would be good punishment.
I hope they have to put up with all the bureaucratic stuff that being in a company.
I think anytime you get a large number of people in any situation, you wind up with some of these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
But I did want to ask you, Suzanne, just with the enterprise move toward increasingly toward cloud networking, and especially with we can't go podcast without mentioning COVID, I guess. with the need to work from home and access cloud applications.
Hmm.
Are hackers taking advantage of this, of enterprise reliance on the cloud?
We did see more of the attacks targeting the cloud systems than we had before. We actually, so speaking of COVID and the changes it made, in the beginning of the pandemic, we started collecting data just sort of in our public data set, looking at, the kinds of things that happened and, tagging those that were specific to COVID. And because we expected to see a lot more errors because of all this hastily stood up infrastructure for companies that aren't normally remote, and we expected to see a lot more errors, but we really didn't see that many more errors than we had before. But we did see a lot more. Of course, the phishing lures all take whatever is the current headline, and so COVID was all over the place there. And it evolved over time. It started out with information about the virus, and then it moved into information about, or I should say, disinformation about vaccines and that sort of thing. And so whatever the news topic was, we saw it evolve into the COVID lures as well. And then we also saw them targeting more cloud-based infrastructure just because it was so easy to get to.
Yeah, it seems too I mean, it kind of follows the logic of like, if that's where all the people are going and want to put their data and things like that, then that would obviously the target would move on. I'm very interested in that methodology of targeting the things or putting out lures to the things that people are searching for the most or want to um, you know want to learn about the quickest. Do you have any ready-made advice for like when there's, and let's just assume since we're still in the pandemic that tomorrow there's going to be some other announcement about some other either facet of COVID or protection against COVID that we all have to quickly Google and figure out, oh, what is my region doing? What do I have to do in my city? How do you keep stay a step ahead as a consumer or as somebody at work and not let yourself fall victim to that, because a lot of the places we are going for information are going to be Google, Facebook, Twitter, that sort of thing.
Right. And I think part of the thought process there has to be, well, if it came into my inbox, I probably shouldn't follow it. I should go out on Google and look for it independently.
Okay. Yep. Definitely a
Just
good.
because, anything that comes knocking at your door should be viewed with a certain amount of
Right.
suspicion.
Yeah, because they're eager to get you to click on something. So
Oh,
you have
yes.
to go out and find out, is that thing legit? Is it really on sale? That's always my favorite. Really? How much? Okay. But
If
yeah,
it sounds too good to be true,
right.
it probably
Yeah.
isn't.
You have to resist the urge to click through when something
Hmm.
is tempting, or when something just happened and then suddenly somebody serves
Yeah.
you up the perfect news article that summarizes exactly how you feel, and all you have to do is click on something. It's like, maybe that's too easy. Uh, has there been any kind of change or movement in credentialing data in terms of uh, you know people stealing credential data? Is that seems to be another kind of hot area where um, cyber criminals, I guess, or I don't know what you term people who haven't been prosecuted who are actively stealing stuff.
I think they're still considered criminals. They just haven't been
Criminals, yeah,
convicted
but
as
there's
criminals.
the whole I mean, there's so many sites and so many things that I deal with at work that have suddenly gone to two-factor authentication and things like that, and that to me signals that obviously their users have been you know victims, or they're worried that their users are about to be victims. Is that kind of activity on the rise, or is the defense of it just becoming more mainstream now?
Well, I would hope the defense is becoming more mainstream, but it's definitely on the rise. So yeah, between the brute forcing that we saw, an increase in, but we also saw, all of these big credential breaches where they release the credentials and people package them all up as databases and sell them, and then people use them to try and hit whatever infrastructure they're interested in and see if there's people who've been reusing their credentials, and people do it all the time. And that's why you've got to implement multi-factor authentication, so that that's not a valuable thing anymore. They can still have it, login password be successful, but if they don't have that second factor, then they're not going to get in. And hopefully it will also raise flags. But it's hugely popular. My favorite quote from the report this year was that credentials are the glazed donuts of data types. And I did not write that. I love that. It's just so appropriate. Who doesn't love donuts,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't even have to be hungry if they're just sitting out. I'll grab
I know,
one.
if they're there, they're just so enticing.
You can eat a bunch and not feel full. Like
might feel a little sick.
All kinds of good reasons, right? No, that is a good point about, even though it seems a pain to set up, with a multi-factor authentication, it really is like great insurance against any kind of, password mishandling or password loss, or, oh shoot, somebody saw me log into this, or somebody saw, somehow guessed my favorite password or whatever.
Or the ever popular, oh, we just use the one login and password across all systems.
That's right.
Because it's convenient. And we don't change it when someone leaves.
No,
we write it on a Post-it on our computer.
And then we have it behind us on our Zoom calls.
I know. Yeah, I've noticed. I actually have seen that a couple of times where I've been on calls with sources and with other folks, and since they're so used to being on video, they just have their cork board behind them with all their plans to take over the world or pick up their kids, one or the other. There's always
whatever
something.
comes first,
Yeah, and then they'll have like, the password for United Airlines is this, or something, and you're just like, this is awesome.
Yeah, we've seen that occasionally on news broadcasts too.
Yeah.
So it's not just the pandemic Zoom call thing. It's it's happened on other venues as well.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So it seems like there's always that human error issue that is a real problem, I think, in cybersecurity. I suppose we could talk forever about this, but what are some of the advice or insight you give to your customers in terms of kind of combating that, response to maybe panic that people have when they get a phishing email and they're like, oh, I better click on this and get this resolved quickly? Or how do you handle the human error aspect and train people to be a little bit more careful,
more aloof and cool?
Yeah, that too. Not putting their password on cork boards.
Well, and that's, sometimes it's an easy fix, sometimes it's a hard one. It depends on the error. We see a lot of like a misdelivery error out there that a lot of times it's paper documents. They do mass mailings, governments, healthcare, organizations. There's a lot of organizations out there that do huge mass mailings on the regular, and you get the envelope and the contents out of sync. And that's a simple check, sampling throughout the mailing to make sure it's still as it should be before it goes out the door is a simple check, and it's a low tech check. But people do it all the time. And the same thing goes for, electronic. You've typed in what you thought was the right distribution list and you find out it was the wrong distribution list. People are just trying to go so fast that they really need to sort of take a step back and make sure, when you're dealing with the sensitive information, that you double check it before you send it out. And one of the other things that we see is, the error of loss, physical loss of devices. It's taken some industries longer than others to get the memo that encryption is your friend on these kinds of devices. And that way, at least, you don't have to declare a data breach. But again, it's something that we know how to fix, and people just don't fix it, And as a researcher, it can be a little frustrating writing the report every year and going, oh, look, that didn't change.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think the social engineering stuff is kind of as sophisticated as we all seem online. People talk in shorthand, and they are great at posting videos, and they do all this magical content stuff, but then they fall prey to something really simple, like these sort of social engineering tricks that people put out there. What would you say are like some of the most popular ones, or the ones that just keep coming up again, no matter how smart we all get?
It amazes me that the Nigerian print scam is still around. You know,
It still is, yeah.
it still is.
He
How do
still needs
people
that money.
still think that? You know,
He's still in power, still needs all that money.
that's right. And he'll give you
I
a
always
nice
love the ones
percentage if
too
you just,
where
go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. He
I was
will.
gonna say there's the ones from Nelson Mandela's wife, and she needs
Right.
to give you some money, and then
Right.
Hmm.
there's also your friend is stuck in London
Oh
in a
yeah,
prison, and they need money
they
wired
need you to
right away.
wire money,
Yeah.
and Bill Gates is going to give you money if you do this one simple thing.
Right. Yeah, I saw. Now that came up a bit right around his latest scandal. There was a lot of hey, you've probably seen me in the news lately. I need some help. Donating to this thing. It was really funny too
And I'm
because
going to reach out to a complete
I know, yeah,
stranger.
because I was just like, oh yeah, let's target is like, wow, Bill Gates is targeting broke journalists in Texas. This is a great how
But
the
he needs
mighty
my
Here for you,
help.
Bill.
yeah,
This is urgent.
how the mighty have fallen. um, yeah, no, I think it's interesting, the social engineering stuff, and also on Facebook and places like that. I've noticed a lot of uh, I would call it social engineering light, where people are you can tell they're trying to slowly build a profile of a group of people, because they would say, like, they're asking a bunch of things um, as like a group, bonding thing. Like, my mother's maiden name is the craziest thing, or something like that. That's an extreme one, but they do a lot of more subtle things, like, hey, your superhero name is the month that you were born, and your mother's maiden name, or something like that, and then a bunch of people will just reply with those things, and it's hilarious, because it's just like, if you just
Jeez.
have a list of bits of data you want to tick off about individuals, then you can really make some highly educated guesses as to what passwords they're using, at any number of popular services. I imagine that I imagine the reason that keeps happening is because it on some level it must be really working well.
Or, just working at all, because
Right.
you only need to be successful a few times. I saw one the other
Hmm.
day
Right.
on Facebook that was like, it was, for some reason, it was justifying people are smart if they can type in their social security number backwards. And people were doing it. And I'm
No.
like, oh, people, come on,
That's awesome. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, mine's just nothing but fives, so I never have to worry about it. It's all fives.
All fives.
Yeah, but no, it's interesting that yeah, that like you said, um, it doesn't take a bunch of success for it to work.
Hmm.
It only has to work one time, and that's really the thing that we have to, I guess, keep in mind on this. We're running up against it on time a little bit. Kelsey, you have any last questions, or one more thing to kind of to cover?
I was just going to say, I love how the DBIR report ends, where it says, give yourselves and each other a pat on the back, or even better, a big virtual hug. All will be well. Because,
Yeah,
We're
I
hoping
mean,
we're right.
yeah, I just like, after you read through it, and we talk about all these different ways that hackers are trying to ruin our lives, I guess. Just love that at the end you're like, it's gonna be okay.
It's okay. We're trying not to depress everybody who's reading our report.
Right.
well, that's a good thing to do as well. What's the best place for people to get the latest? A lot of the information we've covered and we've talked about today, just to kind of reset, is in the Verizon DBIR report. Where's the best place to pick that up?
It's verizon.com/DBIR.
Okay,
Well, that's
it's
easy.
simple enough. See, it's not like we're not going to send you through a labyrinth of random URLs or whatever. And DBIR, data breach investigations report, or is
Hmm.
it incidents report?
Nope, it's investigations.
Data breach investigations report, and yes, and
And it pairs well with a glazed donut.
It
what you're
does.
Yeah.
giving it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're doing food pairings and menacing cybersecurity information, it's a very good pairing there. Suzanne Widup, thanks so much for giving us a bit of your time, and thanks for your hard work on and research in the report.
Thank you for having me.
This podcast is sponsored by Infinera. Infinera is transforming network architectures and end-user connectivity services as demand for capacity drives coherent technology closer to the edge at 100 gig, across the metro at 400 gig, and deeper into the core at 800 gig.